Well, hello, and for at least the 162nd time, welcome to my cellar. Got a number of things to talk about today. There's been two significant dates this week. One significant to a great many of us, one significant only to my wife and I. On Thursday the 4th, we noted the 13th anniversary of the passing of Gary Gygax. And on the 5th, I got my second shot with Cheryl. So 2 weeks from now, and we're free at last. All right, we'll get right into this. I'm following my usual format. I downloaded these about 20 minutes ago, gave them no thought whatsoever while I went upstairs and did some stuff, and just let the back part of my brain percolate on them. Okay, I watched Curmudgeon in the Cellar like it was my Saturday morning cartoons. Just dropping you a comment to let you know that as I do so this Saturday morning, you finally persuaded me to your point of view. I'm having a sausage and egg biscuit with spicy brown mustard on it, and it's good. Yep, it is, isn't it? It's a funny thing. The only thing from McDonald's breakfast that I ever liked was their sausage and their cheese and sausage biscuit. The rest of their breakfast menu, blech. And in response to that, no reasonable person would possibly think sausage and egg biscuit with spicy brown mustard could be bad. Well, no, not unless you got a problem with spicy brown mustard. Though I find if you can't get spicy brown, like Golden's or something, actually I like a zingy yellow just as well. But that's just me. And and here's another one on this Saturday morning cartoon thing. I watched myself responding to Curmudgeon in the Cellar like I was a Saturday morning cartoon. Well, which one would you be? If I had a choice, I'd be H.R. Puffin stuff. All right. Back to this was in regard to how I treat clerics in my world. I allow my clerics to spontaneously turn their spells into equivalent healing spell. A borrowed Pathfinder rule. I like that they can choose helpful utility spells at the start of the day, but can substitute for a healing spell if needed. It's difficult for clerics to take anything other than healing spells, especially lower level. Well, that's an interesting idea. As you know, I don't pass or fail anybody's ideas. I sometimes comment on them, and I got one I'm going to comment on strongly later. But that sounds like an interesting idea. Think if you're going to treat them as spells, okay, this is what I think I'll need today. But oh hell, I stubbed my toe. I really want to fix it. I'm okay with that. And that's a novel approach. I'm all for novelty. God knows. I started rolling in the open, and we really enjoyed it. They trust me, but I found it added a lot of tension around the table during combat because I won't save them or fudge an unlucky roll like I would be tempted to behind the screen. I felt the way you do for a long time, but after experimenting with it, I'm going to keep it specifically around combat. So, well, the games I'm playing all online, I can't do that. I don't have that luxury, so we have to rely on a lot of trust and honesty, which I believe that I hope most of the people that sign up to play my games have at least a modicum of trust. I can trust them, and they have some honesty. Now, I'm not exactly sure what prompted this one. When I hear the word chariot, I think of Ben-Hur. Okay, that's cool. Little known fact. When I first moved to the Cincinnati area in the early 80s, for a couple, 3 years at the various conventions I was going to, I was running Circus Maximus finals games for Avalon Hill. It so happened that one year Tom Shaw was here for CintheCon, back when we had, 4,000 attendees. And he came by super late at night, wondering what all that noise was upstairs. And, we were at it was a junior college, I believe. And anyway, he came up and he found about 35 people clustered around a table that was a Circus Maximus final. And I was using for the first time the 15 millimeter chariots that Tom Meyer sculpted for me. And from that point on, I ran Circus. I love the game. I've infected Texas with it. I infected Gary Con with it. They both have regular chariot tournaments, and I'm most proud. The more interesting thing about that game, in my opinion, is I met the guys that designed it. And when I met them, I shook their hand. I said, "Man, this is amazing. You absolutely captured the movie." And the guy said, "Yeah, good. That's what we set out to do." And they did. The actual play of the movie was, the actual play of the game very much mimicked what happened in the movie. And then, of course, they wrote all the campaign stuff so you could have a season and, fleshed it out. But when it comes to a rollicking 3 or 4 hours of brutal run that dude over if he doesn't get out of your way, there's nothing like Circus Maximus. Circus Max, as we like to call it. When selecting new miniatures, what quirks do you look for? What grabs your attention? Do you avoid or pass over anything in particular? Do you go for monsters, wizards, or dwarf kind? Do you have a regret miniature? No, I have a lot of regret miniatures. I look at them today, I go, no, that's beyond my painting skills. Mainly because since I started painting, and then I quit for all those years, and now I'm back in it, and the quality of crafting of actual miniatures, arms are so thin and detail is so fine that it's rather daunting. What quirks do I look for? Well, I favor free stuff. I really enjoy the anthropomorphic stuff that Dark Sword does. I like several of the Partha and Ironwind lines. Nowadays I tend to paint one-offs. Maybe it's a dwarven cannon and it's got 5 crew members, but that's still a one-off. I don't paint units anymore. I don't have occasion to use units anymore. The last units I painted were plastic ones for the giant ogre game, and those were rather slapdash painted just to break up the monotony of the solid colors. In terms of figures, it's the individual nowadays. Since I'm not painting for any agenda, it's got to appeal to me. If it looks, and I'll be honest, I've ordered a few through a catalog or online that when I got it, I go, bad idea. So, but regret miniatures, oh yeah, I got 2 cigar boxes full of them. Who doesn't? All right. When you design an adventure for your PCs, how do you start? Do you draw the dungeon map and then fill it in with what makes sense, or start with the monsters and create a dungeon map that fits them? In my design philosophy is to design the hook, the reward, whether it's an item that you've finally got a lead on, or something you have to acquire to defeat the big bad evil guy. That's generally where I start. And then I go from, okay, this is their task. What level are they going to be likely to be? And then most adventure writers will specify recommended levels when somewhere usually in the front of on the front or in the front of the book, because there's no point in buying something like the Temple of Elemental Evil if all you've got is third and fourth and fifth level players to play in it. It's going to get old quick. Going to be a lot of zombies and vampires and such wandering around in the temple, in your temple, because all the dead characters. But I generally go for what's the goal, what's the reward, how should it be guarded, who's going to be going after it. Based on who's going to be going after it, how well it should influence how well it's going to be guarded. There's a question about another design tool coming up later, THAC0. I always look at, okay, there's going to be X number of players of fourth to sixth level, we'll say. And I'm talking old school, of course. And they're going to have between them an average, there's an expectancy of an average of X number of hit points. And X number of hit dice, if you will, if that's the direction you go. So therefore, there has to be more hit points and hit dice on the other guy's side, because if there isn't, there's not a challenge. The other guys aren't nearly as intelligent. All the things that they encounter from the bad side are not going to be nearly as smart as they are, so their brains should make up for the numbers and to a good deal. And then I go from there. Now, in the Wheel of Blame that I'm doing, that's an entirely different story. I make those up on the spot based on the items that the players give me, and it's very much improv. Okay, you're disoriented, you feel like you're spinning around in the air, and all of a sudden you're underground, you're in a 20-foot square room, there's a corridor leading off to the north, and doors on the east and west walls. And then we go from there. Now, all I've gotten in advance is that they're going to be underground. I've also got how I'm going to use the two things they gave me, whether it's going to be in an adversarial or cooperative way, how well I'm going to disguise or distort them. But the place is first in my creative process. Okay. After editing and recompiling a list of monsters from my homebrew system, drawn mostly from OD&D with a few of my favorites from the Monster Manual, and a choice few extras me and my friends made up, I really haven't felt the urge, as I had in the past, to expand that list. Maybe if one has had the opportunity to really think deeply about a set of monsters, they discover the true depth and possible variety of play. I find myself thinking more about the finer points, like Hobgoblin society, the lack of dwarven sexual dimorphism, bugbear jack-o'-lantern masks, or how the basilisk cockatrice metabolism actually works, and less about coming up with some totally new monster of the week. With fewer monsters to work with, those that remain end up more fleshed out and feel more real. As you pointed out, fewer monsters does not need to mean they're all predictable, and indeed I feel that you're less inclined to run a monster by the book if you use a smaller list that you as a DM know more intimately. In this way, you may even train your players not to expect the same from every monster of a type that they encounter. Yeah. Oops, over here. Sounds good to me. You make my point. You can be much more nuanced by using the same, especially in a campaign. You can be much more nuanced by using an adversary more than one time. As for rolling out in the open, it seems to come about because of players' obsession with game balance. Okay, I'll grant that to a point, but I was just reading a post on Facebook, and some guy's lamenting the fact that he has 4 players in his game, and they're all 10th level magic users, and they have this standard operating procedure where they go in and lob in heavy with the fireballs and the fireballs and lightning bolts, and then a couple of them morph into dragons while the others stand back and do defensive. Okay, but I'll bet you I can devise something that will prove to be absolutely confounding to those 4 players. Because for one thing, I'll bring in, and this is something I feel the DM's absolutely right to do. When your players get in a rut and they become fireball happy, well, introduce them to a couple of monsters that are fireproof, or throw fire on themselves, and see how the players like dodging fire, smelling scorched hair. It's always a way. Always a way. And I cannot see why, as a DM and as a player, you wouldn't want to keep exploring new ways, new tasks, new adversaries, new foes, new conundrums. Amazing video. If I may suggest, naming your videos referencing the subject you discuss would make it easier for people to find your words of wisdom. Best regards from Brazil. You're right, it would, but if you can find one of my videos that only deals with one thing, that's why I write up the descriptions, and at least you can scan 40 or 50 words that I put in the description about the main things that we touch on that night. Well, that episode, I always make them late at night. Otherwise, no. I mean, already, what we talked about in this one? We've talked about Saturday morning cartoons, clerics altering their spells, rolling out in the open, miniatures painting, designing. Which one of those do we stop and make the most important? I can't. I don't even know in advance which one I'm most likely to, which alley I'm likely to go down. But thanks for the thoughts, and good luck in Brazil. Total agreement. Always thought the Fiend Folio and Mantra Manual 2 weren't necessary. Maybe used a couple of monsters out of each, nothing on a regular basis. Well, I've always said that they were crutches. They were tools for people with stunted imaginations that couldn't figure out a way to use orcs again. Well, I used orcs, I gotta use something else. That's just silly. Just silly. Quick rules question. Oh wait. This is backwards. Okay. The drow were in the Fiend Folio. Okay. I'm not a big fan or a big hater of the drow, so that doesn't do much for me. I like using achievement tokens that level up. The players can at level up, so the players can use it for a reroll. That's an interesting idea. On a level up, I don't have a problem with doing some different stuff other than the just go up a level and get more hit points. I like the idea of earning a chance to try to re-roll a particularly crappy number. Okay. Regarding the meaning of hit points, one easily understandable way to go is just say that the adventure setting is like the Jiangxi XIA genre, and that hit points represent actual toughness and magical vitality. In this case, having 100 hit points doesn't mean that you're totally skilled or lucky. It means that swords only scratch you and you can easily regrow severed limbs. The reason an 8 hit point crossbow bolt to the head can't kill a high-level fighter is because it just can't. It either can't penetrate or the fighter can keep fighting with bolts through the head. It's not a real-world realistic, but it is consistent within the genre. No. Number one, hit points originally were not called shots. So now you're mashing two things together that don't mesh all that well. Using hit location called shots, critical hits, with a system that wasn't designed for that. Just like last week we talked about, you don't need to roll to bash that stone pillar with your hammer. You hit it. Yeah, come on. If you're going to play with any verisimilitude, any semblance of reality, a crossbow bolt in the head, if you're going to play this, now this is a choice you make, critical hits and called shots, it would be asinine to say a steel crossbow quarrel through your skull didn't kill you. You have to have some semblance of reality. If your head is severed from your neck, however it might happen, you're dead. You have to have some sort of realism in here. Hit points are an abstraction. And it's something you choose to do. If you choose to hit the location, you choose to do critical hits, then you have to accept that a crossbow bolt in the head will kill your fighter no matter how many levels it is. You hit him in the head and you max out. I don't care. You hit him in the head. You can always say, I hit him in the head. Oh, I hit him in the eye. Soft, aqueous manner. Bloop, right to the back of the skull. You're dead. No, swords only scratch you. No, that's silly, in my opinion. Now, if that high amp, high powered way is the way you like to play in your group, okay. But I won't be playing that way in mine. That's all. Regarding monsters, as a DM, I tend to make the most frightening and deadly enemies. I tend to make the most frightening and deadly enemies other humans. There's no end to the variety of evil that can be done by those that are the same race as player characters. Monsters are often tools used by the bad people or aberrations that have gotten loose from wizards' laboratories. I did have to have my players encounter some some boule in the wild so I could use my 3D printed boule minis. I used your text from the original Dragon magazine to design the encounter, making their taste for halflings quite clear. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear it. Nothing like a traditional boule slaughter. God love them. Gotta love them all. Make sure I'm not going through this too fast. All right, I read those. See, I never start a timer, so I never know how long I've been babbling. Again, yeah. You need the humans aren't diverse enough that, okay, I use humans as bad guys this time. Now I'll use dwarves. Then I'll use elves. Oop, I'm running out of smart things. What do I do next? Well, use more humans. Henry the Fiend Folio. Do you happen to know what kind of paper and ink gave the Fiend Folio 1881 sense a distinct scent or odor to it? No. Number one, I wasn't there. And number two, if I had to speculate, if you're talking about one that's printed in the U.S., I'd say they might have just gone to a new printer and tried out a new printer, perhaps, or their other printer got a great deal on paper. I used to buy paper that way. Back when Dragon magazine, I'd buy offset paper literally by the box, half a boxcar load at a time. If I got a great deal on it, there was a couple, 3 issues worth of printing. So when I had the money, when I could float the float float the credit or whatever. That's what I did. So I imagine it was more than likely an ink paper reaction that might not have been perfect. That sometimes happens. Um, and it can be a paper that you've bought and used before, and they've made the mill has made a slight alteration in the coating or the chemical composition or whatever, and it smells funny. I'd only heard that a couple of times about one of the books smelled funny. Okay, I never noticed it. Okay, the lava children were pretty cool. They're like the ideal race for ginger kids that got picked on in school. And it's about time I get around to make them a character race in my campaign. I still play them as Alfred E. Newman Mad Magazine icons, with their females looking like Wendy's. Wendy the Hamburger Girl. Well, if you were doing that for a Saturday morning cartoon, that'd be certainly an interesting one, wouldn't it? Okay, now I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to respond. Here's a list of interesting little modern devices for camping and survival in the wilderness as equipment that some DM think is too high tech that I just assume grant. Pepper spray as a weapon, durable paracord and tar bank line, duct tape, compasses, binoculars, Bic lighters, and Gore-Tex. Modern headlamp with lithium batteries or continual light spell, etc. What do I think? Any one of those items, would make a wonderful thing to find in a post-apocalyptic world. A couple of them might make an interesting magical weapon, but to give the party paracord? Oh, come on. Where's the fun in that? Bic lighters? Gore-Tex? Come on. How does that, in any way, shape, or form, mimic any kind of sword and sorcery setting? Post-apoc? Sure. Go great in Mutant Crawl Classic. Go great in Gamma World, Metamorphosis Alpha. Those are certainly things you'd have there. But in a supposed sword and sorcery genre, I mean, even if you're doing some kind of John Carter or Mars mashup, they don't have paracord and Bic lighters. No, I think that's not a good idea. I would not allow any of those things in there on a regular basis. Maybe a tent, a nylon tent, a magical item, the domicile of dryness. You assemble it and you don't get wet in the rain. One man's technology is the less educated man's magic. Go deep in the jungle and pull out your Bic, and they might go, ooh. Or they might stab you full of poison spears because you're a demon. You gotta watch that stuff. All right. Quick rules question. In your opinion, is turning undead by clerics magical? Would magic resistance impact this ability? Hope you're keeping well. Thank you, I am. No, it's not magical, it's theological. I have always treated, and that was part of the original ethic, was that turn undead relied on being in good with your deity. And believe me, if you weren't in good with your deity, both Rob and Gary would start screwing around with you. They took alignment seriously. Alignment today seems to mean next to nothing. Alignment should, if you either have no alignment whatsoever and just admit that you're going to play a chaotic neutral world, chaotic neutral being what most people actually play as. But if you want to have good role play, then get into that kind of thing. If you want, if you want to put that into your campaign, If you want religion in your campaign, theology in your campaign, then make them keep up to their alignment. Make their magic weapons and items don't work anymore when they've veered too far from the path. That's one way to handle that. So no, magic resistance would not do anything. Turning undead is just now. Here's an ethical question. If you're chaotic evil, why would you want to turn undead? You could command them. They could be your undead army. Theological, not magical. With the exception of the Gith race, or Gith, I'm not sure which that is, Gith, Fiend Folio was pretty uninspired and I found no use for it. The fact that my Fiend Folio looks like new after 40 years while my Master Manual is worn with all the love is a clear testament to that. Looking at my books, the Monster Manual and Player's Handbooks are worn while the DM's Guide looks unused. I recall that the Player's Handbook was all that was really needed to play the game when we were teens. Was that the intent? If you were on a budget, you could get away with the one book? Yeah. As I said earlier, we knew that a lot of people were going to buy them all anyway. But if you just wanted to play, if you weren't interested in being a DM, all you needed was a Player's Handbook. One book, $10 instead of 30. Well, actually, it was 10 and 50. I don't even remember what they originally sold for. But yeah, that was the original intent. Player's Handbook. We figured anybody that wanted to play would have it. Now, here again, the realities were that we knew DMs would, guys that did nothing but DMs, such as myself, would get it just to see what the players are up to. And just like players would get the DM's handbook, the DM guide, just to see what they were up to. Excuse me, I have an itchy nose this morning. Maybe it's a side effect of the shot. Right now, all I have is a sore arm. What is the proper pronunciation of THAC0? I have heard THAC0 rhymes with backhoe. And did you say THAC0 rhymes with Greco? Yes, I did. Was THAC0 ever meant to be a public term, or was it meant to be an in-house only? It was an in-house reference. It was a starting point for determining how tough a monster had to be, how strong you could make a sword. It was a baseline reference to hit 0. 0 was good. 0 was magic. Someone here asks, in your opinion, which is better for from a playability standpoint, descending or ascending? Doesn't make a difference. Doesn't make a difference. We had ascending. 9, you were that clod with a short toga or short tunic, sandals, and a big wicked scythe that walked off the farm searching for something better. And as you got better, it got, I believe that it was kind of like when you got to 1, the best there was without being magical, you had like first class armor. And then everything above was magic. Doesn't matter anyway. If you start at 1, which is just as logical, you got the tunic and the sandals and the scythe, and going up to a 12, no difference. It's what you're used to. The point being that armor gets better, swords get tougher. dry tonight. Okay. I think for the lack of trust between DM and player, blame 3.5. It gave the players so much power, not only in their characters, but in how the game system worked. People often say AD&D was adversarial, but I never had as much animosity between players and DM as when playing 3.5. The fact that monsters follow the same rules as players especially lead to lots of, well, you can't do that arguments. The shift from DM rulings and decisions to rules written in stone really did something to people's brains. And in reply to that, 3.5 is the official edition of Power Gaming. I've heard that a lot, so the frequency of the anecdotal evidence would suggest that there might be some truth there. Never played it. Something happened somewhere along the way. Something happened because we went from, oh, hey, let's all have a good time together, to this, you're cheating, we're not getting everything we're due. There's an argument that I just really raises the hairs on the back of my neck. Like, we're entitled to this, we're entitled to that. No, you're entitled to what the DM decides. You're entitled to. There was an old, in the very beginning, there was a system for determining victory points, experience points. That was an oft transposed word right there, 2 words right there. But there was a system. So many hit dice on the monster, yada, yada, yada. It's up to you what you want to award. Personally, if they manage to get dumb lucky and stumble across some hideous monster that's nearly dead, and all they got to do is, set its lair on fire and it burns up. I'm not going to give them 12 hit points or 12 hit dice worth of experience points. By the same token, if they have a particularly tough battle with less than awesome opponents, but despite the less than awesome opponents having great die rolls, and it's like, how are they doing this to us? Well, they're having great die rolls. It disturbs me that it has become like this. Power gaming. We all wanted to be promoted. We all aspired to be that 10, 11, 12th level that retired, had a massive gold, and went out in the wilderness and carved out his own holding. Well, yeah, we had ambitions. I can honestly say that in the 5 years that I was, 6 years, if you count the year I was playtesting, I never met a player that had the ambitions to rule the world. Never saw a DM set up a campaign where that would have been possible. We weren't trying to facilitate Hitler or Mussolini or Genghis Khan, or go ahead and pick your despotic ruler. I don't know what edition it exactly was. I do know that there are people that first played D&D as 3.5 and were never at that time had not been exposed to any other way to play. I do know that the people that try the new editions are more critical. I do know that it probably won't make any difference with 5 because their advertising campaign has been so strong. Their marketing has been so complete. They, as just released in Hasbro's figures, they did enormous amounts of money, and they've grown the game enormously. Now, for what does that mean for us old school grogs? Well, I smugly think that there'll be people that are not going to be happy with the game, are going to be interested in, well, what else is going on, and we'll end up gravitating back to a more loosey-goosey, let's have fun, old school style. I've seen a lot of that now. I expect to see a lot more. I don't care. It just means I'll have different people at my table. Speaking of my table, Gary Con, I'm running 4 games. Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday in the late morning. And I've got a couple of games I'm lining up for my online Theater of the Mind games. I've got a couple of those I'm setting up for pretty soon, within the next couple of weeks, I guess. So things are going good here. We had our second shots today. So in a couple of weeks, I'll be able to feel like if I wanted to, I could go outdoors again. Now, 2 of the 5 of them, there's 5 of us that regularly game together. 2 of us have now had both our shots. The other one being a pharmacist who got his a long time ago. So as my buddies each get their second shot, Wednesday night game night is going to make a reappearance. And I can't wait, as I'm sure you can't wait either. I have committed to Luke that I will be at the Autumn Revel. That being said, I will certainly plan on attending Game Hole, but nothing before September, because I don't care if I've had the shots or not. Too many other people haven't, and we'll see how the individual state, the host state, is handling the pandemic. Good news, its numbers are going down. Good news, lots more people getting shots. Good news, a 3rd vaccine's out. My friend Jim, he lucked out. He gets the 1 shot on Monday. So about the same time, we'll each be ready to, hey, come on over. And we'll sit and probably talk for 3 straight hours because we haven't seen each other. We talk frequently, but it's not the same. So I hope the best for all of you. And poor people in Texas, I hope you're getting over your debacle. Stay safe. Wear your mask. Don't be an idiot. I don't care if you do live in Texas or Mississippi. Don't listen to those moron governors. Continue wearing your masks until we've achieved herd immunity. Wash your hands a bunch, cough in your elbows, all that good stuff, 6 feet apart, social distance. Come on, run the downside now. Don't screw it up, please. Dodada Govi. Oh, hello. I'm still figuring out when this thing starts. Welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, a curmudgeon in the cellar.
Last man around when the race went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller. Curmudgeon in the cellar.
Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. ESR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Curmudgeon.